Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ajahn Brahm's session tonight. And we're going to invite Ajahn Brahm to start with leading a meditation practice as many people are still entering the room, and we will start the talk proper at 7 p.m. So Ajahn Brahm, over to you, please.
Excellent. So hello everybody, I'm speaking from Western Australia in Bodhinyana Monastery in my office surrounded by kangaroos. However, the kangaroos are not allowed inside. They will jump up and down too much. So it's now the time to do a tiny bit of meditation. So if you'd like to close your eyes and bring all your attention to the present moment, just now. And bring that attention inside your body. With your eyes closed, when you go inside the body rather than going outside, it is like you have left the world. Whether you're in Serpentine, Western Australia, or whether you're in Singapore or Colombo or any other place in the world, inside our body, we're at home. Our real home, as Ajahn Chah used to say, inside. And this is where we can all come to the same place, a place of the body which we can relax, in a mind which we can bring to peace. So with your body, see if you can relax your body from the top of the head to the end of the toes, from the toes back up to the head, just to check if there's anything which needs some attention. Sometimes that even if you cannot get rid of any aches or pains, just caring for them, caring instead of curing. You can feel those aches, those pains, those tensions relax. You find that when the body gets at ease, it's just like a string or a guitar string which was stretched is now loose. So when difficulties hit the body, like sicknesses and illnesses, you have what we call resilience. If a little pebble hits a taut guitar string, it makes a loud noise. But when that guitar string is loose, it makes no noise at all. It's the secret of resilience, being relaxed. And when your body relaxes, it feels delightful to focus and notice and pay attention to the delight of bodily relaxation. And you find your body gets more relaxed. And focusing on delight means you don't wander off anywhere, nor do you become sleepy. It's just too pleasant to be here. And then when your body's relaxed and happy as best you can, then go to your mind. To understand what I mean, imagine a peace-ometer, like a thermometer, like a pressure meter. The peace-ometer measures how peaceful your mind is right now. From a number from 10 down to 1. 1 means really peaceful. 10 means agitated. How peaceful is your mind right now? Give it a number. Be honest. And then see if what it needs to bring that number down. What is the cause of peace in your own mind? You'll find that being in this present moment, No past, no future, just now. The past, what we think happened, is not that accurate. Our memories are always a little bit mistaken. And our thoughts of the future, who knows what might happen? But I do know that your future is being made right now. So if you care about your future, care about the present moment where your future is constructed. And you find it become peaceful. And the more peaceful we become, the less we need to think inside our head. We can be silently aware in this present moment, not giving anything a name. And see if we can notice the delightful feeling of being in this moment, quiet inside, still, listening to the world rather than talking to it. And if you wish to be aware of your breathing, just this one breath happening now, being a friend to your breathing. Like meeting a good old companion. You don't control the breath. You walk at peace with your own breath. So now it's time to start the beginning of coming out of meditation. So first of all, how peaceful are you? And how delightful is a mind that is at peace? The joy of being free. And then how relaxed is your body? This is what meditation gives to you. Peace in the mind, relaxation and health in the body. So now please, you may open your eyes to complete this short meditation.
Good evening, Ajahn Brahm, and good evening to everyone else as well. Welcome to the first Zoom public talk that we're conducting jointly with Buddhist Society, Ajahn Brahm Society in Sri Lanka. So we're delighted that we have this collaboration together with Ajahn Brahm Society in Sri Lanka and also Buddhist Society of Western Australia, featuring Ajahn Brahm tonight. For those of you who may not be familiar with Ajahn Brahm, he has been a monk for almost 50 years now. He became a monk, if I remember correctly, at the age of 22. And now
23.
Oh, 23. Okay. And he will be turning 69 this year. So he's come a long way. And we're very grateful that he has been able to stay as a monk successfully. So without any further delay, I know you're all anticipating to hear what Ajahn Brahm has to say about living in this world with great uncertainties. So the topic tonight is expecting the unexpected. So over to you, Ajahn Brahm. And,
Great. So what I shall do is to give a talk for about 30 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions from the audience. And I just put my hat back on because it's really cold here in Serpentine in Western Australia. We have entered the winter time now, the first couple of days of winter. And sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's cool, but this is life. You have to expect, whatever the temperature is going to be, and to take appropriate actions if you possibly can. So I just put my hat on to keep my head nice and warm. It is true that I often say when it's cold, you can keep a warm heart, and when it's hot, you can keep a cool head. But actually a hat does help sometimes. But anyway, that it's not just about the warmth or the cold of our climates. We're living in a time of a pandemic, of COVID. And it's one of the things which I've learned, from a teacher like an Ajahn Chah, learned from reading and contemplating the suttas, which you understand from the meditation which you do, is we find out that it's not what happens to us in life. It's not even what our body feels like when we meditate. It's what we do with what we've got, how we relate to our experiences of life, and especially how we relate to the uncertainties of life. You never know what's going to come next. And because of that, it makes life, even for a monk, interesting. You wake up in the morning and maybe you know what you're going to eat, but that's the last thing which I know, because you depend upon alms food and we don't know what people are going to bring us. And sometimes that's interesting. Well, a good example of that is some years ago, I went to, I think it was Canada, and the people there, they served me, and I thought this was wonderful. You found out what I like. They served me with some shepherd's pie. And it looked like a shepherd's pie. It did have the potatoes on top. But when I went underneath it, I took a big load of it because I thought this is going to be very good for me today. And I found that underneath was very spicy curry. It looked like shepherd's pie on top, but underneath, oh, it's really hard to eat. I tried to eat whatever I could, but it wasn't very good for my tummy. But it was fun because even though it was an unpleasant experience, it did give me another story for my talks about dealing with disappointments in life. And of course, I heard that many people, because of COVID, are losing their jobs, especially young people. They can't go to work, or this. It's not really what you planned in your life. And is it the problem of COVID, or is it because you're planning never actually took into account the fact that we don't know how the future is going to unfold? So instead of planning, thinking that today is going to be like yesterday, instead of planning just because it looks like shepherd's pie, there is shepherd's pie underneath, just because you think the life is going to keep going on the same old way. Instead, we develop these skills, these emotional skills, these wisdom skills, these kindness skills of life. And it's those skills we can use and adapt to anything, which means that the unexpected, it's almost like whatever life can throw at you, you can deal with it. It's not your intellectual skills, what you learn at university. It's not just what you learn from the books. It's what you learn from life. That emotional skill of being able to adapt, to react, no matter what happens in life. We can always do something with it. And this is what I mean as the strength of learning to know that we never know what to expect, but we can always adapt and make use of and learn. Even because I did go to Cambridge and they still keep sending me their newsletters. They send me the newsletters because they keep asking me to make a donation to Cambridge or my college. And of course, I've got the heart to tell them I've got no money because I'm a monk. But they did say some interesting things, like even when the great physicist or mathematician, Sir Isaac Newton, he was at Cambridge during the plague pandemics. And so because the plague, they shut down the university then. It's not the first time that Cambridge is shut. They shut it down, how many years ago, 300, 400 years ago. And that he went off into one of his family's little places over in Suffolk somewhere. And he said that was one of the most intellectually beneficial times of his life. He adapted and made use of the interruption to his career. And that was just an example which I like to remember. I don't care what happens to me in life. Obviously, I care what happens to me in life. I want life to go well, but if it doesn't go well, there's always some way which I can make use of it. And I've often said when I started being a teacher so many years ago, I did not know whether I'd be a good teacher or a bad teacher. I gave it everything I got. I learned as best I possibly could, and I grew as much as I could, but it could have been the case that I wasn't gifted as a teacher. And if I wasn't gifted as a teacher, I thought, great, wonderful, I could become a hermit monk. So I wasn't really worried to expect always getting what I wanted. Indeed, I remembered that's getting what you wanted is a problem. In other words, what was I saying? I said this to some people a few days ago, and it was a quote, not from the sutras. This quote was from Oscar Wilde. When I read it, I thought, wow, this is very wise, and I'm going to write it down. And I wrote it down in a book, and I remembered it ever since. And the quote goes, there's only two tragedies in life, two tragedies. The first tragedy of life is not getting what you want. The second tragedy of life is getting what you want. And that was a very wise sort of intellectual. He was gay, very wonderful man, and a great intellectual who saw deeper into life than many other people did. And that, what does that mean about getting what you want? Getting what you want sometimes makes you lazy. Sometimes life becomes, please excuse me, a little too easy. And every time there is a problem in life, when you get what you don't expect, it can be difficult, but you can grow. And you all know the story, which I've said so many times before, about that sometimes life is like walking down the street and you tread in the dog poo, get all over your shoes. But please don't scrape it off, take it home and scrape it under the mango tree in your garden, because next year your mangoes will be so much juicier and sweeter than ever before. And you must always remember where that mango came from, what you're really eating. The troubles and difficulties of life are where we grow. We learn, we have to accept the unexpected. It's not just losing jobs. Losing jobs gives you a little bit of a break. It gives you a break where you don't have to go to work in the morning and struggle to get to work on time and have all that stress. You can spend a little bit more time with your family and you can do some more studies. You can actually prepare yourself, work on some more studies, even like meditation or other things to improve your skill base. If you lose your job, it's not a time to get negative. It's free time to do some of those things you always wanted to, but never found the time for. So when people start hiring again, which they always do, when these jobs become available, you're really prepared. And if any other problems arise, such as like a death in the family, we have to expect death to happen. It's part of our life. As Buddhists, it should be a little bit more comforting for us to know that if somebody dies, they're just going to get a new rebirth, maybe a much better body, maybe a much better place to live, like in Perth, Western Australia, in the next life. or you may be able to have an opportunity to have a heavenly life, or at least to have a better new body. Sometimes I think people are crazy. They have very old bodies and they're sad when they get a replacement body to live in. In other words, they die and get reborn. I mean, would you do the same to your car? If you've got a car and it gets old and very hard to look after and needs so much maintenance and makes so much noise, obviously you don't look for death, but when death happens, it's like a release for you. And when young people die, sometimes that's the amount of their karma, that's all they have. And they can always get a new rebirth later on. But whatever happens, we look at life in a different way, in a way which is positive. And so when the unexpected happens, and it's what we're really talking about here, it's not the unexpected when you win the lottery. That was unexpected. I never saw that coming. No, if most people worried about the unexpected when rotten things happen to you, unpleasant things, when suffering happens. When suffering does happen to us, we learn how to make the best use of it. Now, for general advice on these difficult times, there was this story, which I haven't told for a long time, but really impressed me, was of the emperor's ring. The young emperor took over the kingdom from his deceased father, and every time things were going well in the kingdom, he would have a party. Every time things and celebrations and carnivals and the like. And every time things were going bad in the kingdom, he would just retire to his room and sulk and get depressed. And the ministers realized, well, you can't teach a king just by telling him. You have to be a bit more subtle. If he gets upset, he can cut your head off. So they asked themselves, what should we do? And they came up with the emperor's ring. The emperor's ring was to put on the outside of this golden ring the simple words, this too will pass. And he had to wear that ring on all occasions. So when things were going well in his life, in the kingdom, in the country, he would always look at the ring and say, this too will pass, when things were going well. But sometimes we forget about that. When we have prosperity in our lands, when we have enough money to enjoy going overseas or living a good life, where we have enough good friends and prosperity, sometimes we forget that things like COVID-19 can happen. There can be disasters like tsunamis. There can be political problems when people just don't do the right things. They should know better, they're in power. But this is part of our life's journey. So when even good things are happening, we make sure we do the very, very, very best, work hard, and take into account that bad times will always come, so that we can preserve the good times as long as possible, instead of just enjoying and partying. And when the bad times come, we don't get depressed. COVID-19, problems in Hong Kong or in the United States or wherever else in the world, when there are problems, we don't get depressed. That's wasting time. That would make the bad occasions, the bad actions, the bad news last even longer. Instead, we do whatever we can in a peaceful, gentle, wise way to lessen those problems and to make sure that we're kind to people. And we make sure that we can learn as human beings to do a better job later on. So this is actually where sometimes we work harder in the disappointing times. But of course, there are many, many people, even during the COVID-19 times when there's difficulties with even transports of food or looking after one another, and monetary problems, supply problems. Even so, it's a wonderful opportunity for those who are more comfortable, who have the opportunity to look after those who are far, far worse off than others. It may be in your street where you live, in your suburb, things are okay. Just like, here in Western Australia, the government here did a pretty good job in lockdown, and so the COVID-19 is not that bad. But there are other people who haven't had so much good fortune for one reason or another. And it's up to us, those people who have had the good fortune, good karma, you may say, of having a much easier time. Not just sit down and think, oh, we've done such a wonderful job. For us to actually see what we can do to help others who are not doing so well at this time. So when the unexpected happens, it gives those who can cope with the unexpected, who are prepared for the unexpected, gives them the opportunity to serve and help and to give. I always remember just the times many years ago after the tsunami, when the Buddhist Fellowship, Buddhist Society West Australia, and all our friends over in Sri Lanka, when we raised funds for those poor people who were afflicted and hurt and lost their livelihoods and lost their homes and lost their family members in the tsunami. We helped out, we served, we looked after one another. And that was a wonderful thing to be able to do. And in those little examples of helping one another, we found out that even animals help out humans. There's one of the wonderful stories from the tsunami was of this Sri Lankan gentleman who every morning before work would go to the lagoon and he would put a few pieces of bread in the water for the fish. And the fish soon got to know this gentleman's generosity. He would always come every morning about the same time to eat the bread. And then he'd go off to work. And one morning he went there, and not just the ordinary fish were there, there was a crocodile was there as well, a big crocodile. And instead of, I don't know if it's an alligator or crocodile, I think the crocodile, but I think you know what I mean. And he got an extra couple of pieces of bread to feed the crocodile as well. From that morning, the crocodile would come every morning for a couple of slices of bread, then would swim off somewhere else. And then he went there one morning to feed the fish and the crocodile when the big wave came. And unexpectedly, he was caught up in the force of that water and carried out to sea. And the currents, the movement of the water was so strong, even though he could swim, he could not swim against this big force of water carrying him out to the sea. He apparently grabbed onto a chair, but the currents in the water tore the chair from his grasp. He tried to catch onto something else, but that he could not hold onto. But finally, he saw a log of wood. He grabbed onto that, and he held on tight. At least he wasn't going to drown yet. But then, that's when he noticed something very strange. That log of wood was flowing in the opposite direction to everything else. Everything else was going out further away from shore, but the log of wood was going towards the shore. It was going closer and closer to safety. And he realized he was a bit confused because of the panic of being so close to losing his life. He sort of understood what that log of wood was, but only when he got off on the shoreline, jumped off and got to the shore, did he realize that was not wooden. That was his friendly crocodile who saved his life. I love that story because it just shows crocodiles usually eat people. But of course, he wouldn't eat a friend. In times of disaster, in times of tragedy, be kind if you possibly can. Look after somebody. Not only does that bring it like light into the darkness, joy where everyone else is worried, a sense of hope where there's anxiety. It also is making great good karma for your future. Just because things aren't going well, it doesn't mean you can't make good karma. There's so many different ways of making good karma. It's not just making donations. It's not just doing your duties to your parents. It's doing your duties to anyone you see. Anyone, just a little bit of kindness, even like a smile to someone who's a little bit miserable. That helps. And it makes you feel good. When you give to others, you always get back. It's like Newton's law of action and reaction, equal and opposite. That's like karma. What you give, you get back. You get back in happiness and joy. You're a good person doing a good job. And that makes the life much, much more joyful for everyone. And it's great that sometimes you say, oh, the unexpected is a disaster. I can't pay my bills. I can't do this. I can't do that. It's amazing that what we do learn is some of the most wonderful things of especially a Buddhist life. Not just how to care for others, but how to live a more simple life oneself. Sometimes when people lose their jobs or there's problems in their life, they can't live in the house they used to have. They have to downsize. What a wonderful thing it is to downsize. Those of you who see me now, this is a little office where I do so much of my work, just writing books and responding to emails and all that stuff. My cave is just a few meters away. That's where I meditate and sleep. It's only a very small area in which I live. And it's very old and just very simple. But I love that simplicity. But maybe some of you who have to downsize simply because you can't afford a big place, simply because you haven't got the job to support your lifestyle. What a wonderful thing it is to live more simply, have more joy in life. I must say that one of the memories which I have of the first year when I was a monk in Thailand, this was, again, almost 45, 46 years ago, was walking into the village one evening. We were doing a ceremony for somebody, I forget what, I think somebody had died. And as we were walking in the village, there was no electricity in that village at that time. There were dirt roads. And you see that the huts where people would live, underneath where the water buffalo rested. The house was on stilts, the water buffalo lived underneath. And under the top, there was a platform of wood, roughly sawn, and little rooms around. And in the middle, open to the outside, the family sat. And every house that evening, I saw the whole family, about 12, 13, 14 people in each house. Grandparents, uncles, aunties, parents, the kids as well. From the tiniest child to the eldest grandparent. And they were sitting around an oil lamp, but not an ordinary oil lamp you buy in the shop. There was just some kerosene and a wick made of an old piece of rag. And that rag was forced through the top of a toothpaste tube, the little nozzle there. And it was floating in the oil. And the rag could soak up enough kerosene to give a flame. It was a very smoky flame, but that was just such a wonderful, efficient way of lighting. It made enough smoke to keep away the mosquitoes. And the family would be sitting there just telling stories, old stories, exaggerated stories, some true, some false, to the children and to one another every evening. What wonderful bonding that was in poverty. No electricity, no internet, obviously, no TV, but just a family sharing. Because they didn't have anything. So it always reminds me of, what do you need? What do you really need? So don't be afraid of losing things when they're not really what you need. And don't be afraid of thinking what other people will say about me. Oh, I haven't got as much as somebody else. Look, a big house is not to impress others. A big car is not to show off. It's more problems for you. So sometimes making more simple choices in life, living more at ease, is a sign of emotional intelligence rather than egotistical pride. How big a house do you need? How many rooms can you stay in at the same time? And sometimes, that old saying from many years ago, it was actually Buckminster Fuller. If anyone remember him, he got this from when he stayed in Burma many decades ago. He was the one who coined the phrase, small is beautiful. So when there is unexpected things happen in life, sometimes they're wake-up calls that if we can't afford our lifestyle, maybe our lifestyle was a bit too wasteful. We wanted too much. It's a reminder to have less in our life, not more. And our main assets, again, are our family, not our things. And even if our family go, the asset was, the inheritance was the wonderful memories we shared with one another as we lived. Again, this is something which I sometimes find very difficult to understand, why people cry all the time when somebody dies, even a young person dies. No, they had a wonderful life, so rich, and they'll have another try later on. But a lot of time we're crying for ourselves, for our own disappointment, for our own unexpected loss of someone. I never call it a loss when somebody dies. It was a gain that I knew them, that I could hang around with them, have fun with them, learn from them. And they reminded me, now they're dead and gone, they remind me to make the best use of my life and not to be lazy. I don't know when that's going to happen to me. So because of that, I make the best use of every moment I have in this body. And I love being a monk. Simplicity, always in lockdown. Well, when I go on retreat, I'm in lockdown. And always having a beautiful happiness, which you get from the emotional intelligence which Buddhism and the Dharma sort of give to you. What a wonderful life it is. And it's been a great opportunity so far in the first half an hour to share some of this happiness with you. Sometimes when I give talks, I can see the people. And of course, I've seen many of you before, know you. I'm not sure who I'm talking to this evening, but I know many of you out there sort of I've seen you before, talked to you before, known you well before. So I wish all of you a really happy time in unexpected life situations. You just go out there and just, if it's really awful, dig it in your garden and make a beautiful garden. Help and serve other people and see what you can do to make this experience the most beneficial you have. Soon it will pass. Soon you'll be back to work again, stuck in the traffic jams, stressed out at the job. But now maybe you can have some peace. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very
great.
much.
You were listening. I thought people may have gone to sleep.
Not at all. And we have over 1,000 people signed on. We did upgrade the Zoom license, and we have about 340 people watching on the Facebook page of Bodhinyana Singapore. So
Yay.
This a very successful webinar, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last, right? Ajahn Brahm is the first of the many that you will be conducting for us around the world.
Is that a threat?
No, it's an invitation in recognition of how popular you are and how your
okay.
Dharma and your humor are highly demanded. So we're delighted to mention that we have people from Australia, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, and United Kingdom signed on. So from around the world.
Very good.
And now we're going to have Rohanath from Sri Lanka, who will be taking over the Q&A session for the first part. And he has some questions already prepared.
Okay, so please, what questions have you got for me?
Thank you very much again for attending this session and helping us out. There's so many people, as Angie mentioned, listening to this, 1,300 plus, so that's pretty good. There are a few questions related to the talk, and I would like to ask them. The first question is, a couple of people asked the same question, so I'm kind of going to paraphrase it slightly. Ajahn, why do this kind of pandemics occur in the world? Does it have anything to do with collective karma, or is it just the world being the world?
It is the world being the world. Human beings are not the only species in this world, and there is other genetic forms are also trying to succeed in life. Remember, just as human beings, that sometimes we cause many species to disappear, and of course other species attack us. As human beings, this is our life, this is our world, and this is the form in which we are living right now. So there will always be some pandemic comes along, and so I know that sometimes people think, oh, what did science say about pandemics? But why is it that some virus affects some people while the same virus doesn't affect another person? This is what I'm interested in, this sort of the mental response we have to sicknesses in our world. It's an opportunity for us to learn. And it is true, not always the case, but many of the people who do pass away, or the elderly, the old with other health problems. And if one had reasonably good health, and because one had a good mind and good sort of attitudes to life, then maybe, it's encouraging us to actually live a more healthy life. So I'm not sure why these things happen. Why do armies happen? Why do wars happen? Why do people do terrible things to one another? But they're always going to happen. We try and lessen it if we possibly can, and try and protect ourselves, but by having lots and lots of kindness and goodness. I say that because I was telling somebody at lunch, actually this morning's talk, that there was a Vietnamese monk who came to visit many, many, many years ago, and he was in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And in his monastery, the people from the Viet Cong would visit, the government troops would visit, and he was such a good monk, such a wise monk, that he felt totally safe. And he could actually help, both sides of the conflict be a little bit kinder to one another. So there's always things we can do to lessen the problems in our world. So I think that's what these pandemics do. It's why they're caused, was it because of somebody did something wrong? Oh, forget about that for the time being. It's here. So let's deal with it first of all. Let's help one another. We can find out why later. Just like the person who was shot by the arrow in the Buddhist sutta. Why did they shoot the arrow? What class was they? What caste were they? Were they male, female, old or young? No, you get the arrow out of your body first of all. And then you try and find out who shot it. Okay?
Thank you, Ajahn. The next question is also on the same lines. At a time like this, most of the worldly people look for spiritual protection. What would you recommend for Buddhists? You covered that bit, but this is more on the lines of Sri Lankan Buddhism of chanting. So I think if you can cover a bit more to that side, it will help. Because we see, not just chanting, we have seen where people organize global meditation sessions at a given time. We see people global chanting at a given time, and so on.
I know one thing is that people need to do something, because people feel so helpless, they feel victims. And in order to overcome the negativity and depression which comes along through victimhood and hopelessness, at least we can do something by doing some chanting. But instead of doing chanting, which takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, it's wonderful if we can maybe do some charity. Finding people who haven't got enough food and actually going to take food to them. Just being kind to people, because that is a much more powerful use of one's time. I'm not saying that chanting doesn't work. I do a lot of chanting myself. And one of the reasons why it works, I think, is when I tell someone I'm going to chant for them, for their happiness and well-being, then they know that I'm going to do that and they have confidence in me. There's a connection there. And the chanting is actually using the connection of the person doing the chanting and the people listening to it, or the people knowing they're being chanted for. That connection there can inspire in the same way that in football matches, when you had your supporters chanting for you, you'll never walk alone. You know which football team that was. That really uplifts the side, and they perform so much better. So the same when you have your supporters, especially the monks you feed and give donations towards, you know that they're chanting for you, they're supporting you. That means a lot. It overcomes this feeling of loneliness, helplessness, being a victim. no one cares. Just the act of caring by spending time doing chanting for something is really important. So yeah, chanting is great, but there's much more to it than that. So don't just, yeah, go on.
25 questions now posted online, and I think Rohanta's got another 10 questions on his list. So I'm going to run through some of those questions posed live here. I'm very grateful for having a safe job at the moment, but there is little joy in my work. Yet I'm scared to change my career, afraid to take risks. What can I do to bolster my courage?
Okay, first of all, bolster your joy at work. You can always put joy into your work, no matter what you have to do. And sometimes some of the people who just, there was this one lady I remember seeing when I was going from the place I was staying to the airport in London. And she was one of these ladies who help children cross the road. She had a lollipop and this big metal sign saying stop. And she was dancing along the road, you know, with doing a little song when she held her lollipop. That created so much happiness for people in a boring job. So first of all, see if you can put some happiness into your life, no matter what it is. And you can always do that, I've found anyway. And number two is, you know, changing your job. Ooh, that's a difficult thing at the present time. I'm not sure what your job is or what the job situation is. But, you know, sometimes instead of changing your job right now, see if you can put a bit more delight and joy into it.
Thank you. And there's another job question. I developed anxiety and felt useless under a micromanaging manager in my last job, which I have now quit. How does one get past the experience and develop motivation and confidence to look for the next job?
It's number one is to say that that's a learning experience for you. You know, a micromanaging boss just drives many, many people away. And that will mean the boss will get a very bad reputation after a while. But you've learned, and sometimes you have to learn how to handle such bosses in a much better way. And remember, just not always the jobs have to be pleasant. I always say that's what they pay you for, to do something you'd rather not do. Okay, that's a bit of a joke, but nevertheless, it's true that sometimes you put joy into what you're doing. And no matter what that is, yeah.
You had mentioned in your book, Happy Every Day, the fastest way to be rich is to work hard. But there are people working very hard and they still remain poor. Please clarify.
It's the meaning of rich. It's not being rich with money. Rich with money, and that disappears very quickly with taxes or people asking for loans and not paying it back again, or just going on some holiday and it's not exactly what you wanted. No, it's richness in your heart, strength in your body. You work hard, you do the very best you can, and it's a richness of spirituality comes from working hard. I work hard, but I'm not rich, monetary. In fact, I've got less than every one of you. I've got no money at all. But nevertheless, I have lots of people who look after me. I'm rich in that area. Exactly, that's the best richness.
Thank you. Over to you.
And no one can take away that happiness.
Thanks, Andy.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is coming from a lot of concerned senior people in various organizations. How do we kindly cut jobs or pay cuts as we face the future economy?
How you do that is be, first of all, honest with people. So, you know, let everybody know that this is what you have to think and contemplate. And what do people think about this right now? Sometimes to have only come to work 3 days a week or 2 days a week so that you can't get full weekly pay, but at least everyone's getting something into their pay packet. So see what we can do. And if you do have to ask people to leave because the company can't last that way, you know, just explain to them with a lot of care that this is our situation. They will understand because this is our life all over the world right now. and to say that, we're trying our very best to survive. At least we can keep some people in work. I think like honesty, authenticity really helps. And you really are caring. And you also, if you're in a senior position there, you also take the pay cuts as well. So that, you also do some sacrifice when you ask other people to do sacrifice. If you sort of give yourself a pay rise and cut the jobs of everyone else, that is soon seen as just self-centered, and it's not positive. You will not get the support of your workforce. Okay.
Thank you, Bhakti. Angie, okay. Do you have a question? Because on the same topic, I have only a couple. Then we have a few more, the more serious ones. Serious means more to the theoretical and technical side of Buddhism.
Okay, I'll ask some from the audience. How does one become super calm? How do you get super calm and continue to be fast in your work?
Oh, this is learning how to do one thing at a time, being focused. And please excuse me, I keep on talking about meditation, but that really helps enormously. So you're calm, but you get so much done. And I remember even, because I did lots of building, I'm still doing building work. A bricklayer once told me he was building a big house in Sydney for a very wealthy client. And a wealthy client came one day to check on the progress, and he saw this young boy doing the brickwork. And the wealthy client really was very angry. Why are you employing such a young novice to lay the bricks on my house? And the builder said, come and have a look at him. And this young boy, I was 16 or 17, he was just so smooth, so focused. Every brick was laid so well. It didn't look like he was working fast, but he got so much done. I've seen many people like that. They don't look like they're struggling, but their output is huge because they've got a calm mind. So learning how to create calmness in your mind, like I did say the little 10-minute meditation before this talk began, learning how just to look at your peaceometer. How peaceful are you inside? And what causes the mind to relax? What causes the mind to be agitated? And then afterwards, check how much work you get done when you're agitated, and how effective and productive you are when you're calm. I am a calm monk, I think. I can say that with accuracy. Peaceful, calm. I get a lot of work done. A lot of books written. A lot of organizations and buildings done. But I don't do that being agitated. Being agitated, I make mistakes. When I make mistakes, I have to go back and fix it up again afterwards. No waste time. So learn how to meditate. Learn how to do one thing at a time. And focus on that. Give everything you've got to what you're doing. And also value the times when you rest, when you sleep, when you are still. They're really, really important in order for you to achieve a lot of efficiency in your life. Never demean the importance of sleep, meditation, and just having fun with your loved ones. That's important for your life. Give that as much importance as your job.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. You're certainly not a lazy monk. In fact, you work very hard. And
yeah, I should be retired by now, 69, still no possibility of retirement.
Well, you won't be retiring because you did mention that as long as you live, you have to work. So there you go. This is your...
Could I rescind that? No, carry on.
You're like wine. You get better as you get older.
Hey, alcoholic? I'm not alcoholic.
Okay, here's another question, probably very much related to just what you mentioned.
Alcohol?
No. Can you please describe how do you maintain a healthy balance between giving to others and taking care of yourself? For example, people in the helping professions are often exhausted, or when we think that those who ask for help only use our goodness, and we should always help and give the benefit of doubt.
In other words, look at other people as you look at yourself. Don't think that other people are more important than you, or that you are more important than others. You count as well. So every now and again, when you're in the helping professions, say you're a nurse, and so in the COVID wards of a big hospital, there are times when you just have to just go to the toilet and just sit there a bit longer, just to do a bit of meditation, to relax. So you could do much more when you're actually looking after patients. We have this balance. If you are not looking after yourself, you can't look after others. You don't look after others with the same degree of care and efficiency. So there comes a time when you need to stop and look after yourself. If you can't care for yourself, how can you really care for others? If you know how to care for yourself, you know how to care for others. And to be able to look after yourself in the caring profession, if you want to know how to do this, there's a couple of tips. First of all, Ajahn Chah's tip, always remember to be the dustbin. Some people come along, they unload on you. Sometimes they don't even need solutions. They just need to tell somebody and be listened to. And then after they've dumped all the rubbish inside of you, make sure you're a rubbish bin with a hole in the bottom so you don't keep anything. That's a skill which we learn from things like meditation or present moment awareness, how to let go so we're not so overburdened. And the other thing is if you're like a counselor or in the caring professions, remember you're doing caring, not curing. Because if you cure, that sometimes you get so disappointed, so frustrated that the person in front of you can't cure them. They've got a sickness, so there's no ventilators available, or whatever you do, you know they're dying. But make sure you care for them, and you always feel successful. That's actually the difference between caring and curing. Curing is just putting the problems that, in the future, kicking the can down the road. Someone's going to get sick and die, and you're going to suffer immensely when you feel so disappointed that you didn't do the right thing. But caring, you can always do that. People live or die, make sure at least they're being cared for. Then you really are a carer, not a curer.
Thank you, Ajahn. And now just a bit of switch of gear, and I think this is a fortune teller question here. Do you think Trump...
I thought that was coming up.
Yeah, do you think Trump will win the next election, and wouldn't that be disastrous?
Trump with what election? There's not an election today, is there?
Next election.
Oh, that's a long time in the future. So in other words, there's enough things to worry about right now. So why worry about things which are going to happen such a long period in the future? In other words, it's a really silly question. It's when people worry about the future so much, so far ahead. That's why the brains get tired. And when the brains get tired, they get upset, angry, and sick. So when you don't have to worry, when there's nothing really to achieve by thinking so far into the future, it's much better to let that go and be in the present moment. People just exhaust their brains by listening, thinking, being concerned about things which they can't do anything about. So let that one go.
That's a wonderful piece of advice, because people
Very
think
good.
so much about this and that, wondering about the future.
Yeah, and they've got enough to worry about with COVID and unemployment and all sorts of problems which are happening right now.
Yeah, indeed. Rohantha, over to you.
Thank you, Angie. The next question is still on more or less on the lines of we've seen, I've asked earlier. One of the aspects we saw during this time was people, doing the Satyagraha. So the question is, Venerable Sir, what is Satyagraha as performed by Angulimala following a suggestion of the Buddha? How can contemplation of meritorious deed performed by one person be of direct assistance to another person? Is Satyagraha the same or different from transferring merit generated by yourself to another?
Well, remember, for many of those instances where people did such a curious, like asseverations of truth, were remarkable from what they were saying. Angulimala had murdered so many people. And his asseveration of truth was, ever since I became enlightened, I've never harmed anybody. And the power of that, a multiple murderer, turning into sort of a noble person, that gives me goosebumps. And it's those powerful statements, not ordinary statements. It says, by the power of the fact I've kept the 5 precepts today, may I not have COVID. They're weak. But when someone has really done something amazing and wonderful, those asseverations of truth have power. Even psychic power, because people hear them and they think, wow, that is just extraordinary, it's unusual. And that's why some of those things do have a lot of power. But they have to come from a special being having done a special act. It's not normal. So if it's overused, it's not going to work. You still there?
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Ajahn. Angie, do you have any questions?
Yes, there are loads of questions here. So I will raise this one now. I have great fear for what is out there and that is taking over how I feel. Could you help someone with great fear about life?
Okay. Well, first of all, what's out there is not as important as what's in here. In other words, what's in your body and mind. So see if you can become at peace, with your body, to learn how to relax it, become at peace with your mind and energize it. But when you're at peace with what's in here, your body and your mind, in other words, you practice some meditation, practice some Dharma, then you go out there in the world and my goodness, you have no fear. There was, for example, a story of this Hindu saint, I think in Brooklyn somewhere, many years ago, and he went from giving a talk somewhere back to his temple, walking alone at nighttime, and he got confronted by a gang of bad people. And they said, hand over your money, Mac, apparently they said. And he said, excuse me, sirs, but I don't have money. I'm a Hindu holy man. Don't give us that. Give out your money or we'll knife you. And he was so peaceful and kind that he just explained to them, just knowing that I'm a holy man, I've given up money and things like that. And I just help teaching people. I've just been out to give a talk to help somebody. And he explained his lifestyle and they were just so impressed. They said, I'm terribly sorry, sir. They told this man, this Hindu man, terribly sorry, sir. Sorry for bothering you. Have a wonderful evening. And they let him walk home. And he told that to some friends, and the friends told it to the newspapers. The newspapers were stunned that these people would actually call him sir and let him go. And it was because of his goodness, because he'd found out what was in here, inside his body and mind, and had managed to calm and bring up kindness and wisdom, that when he went out there into the world, he was just so incredibly safe. There's another little story here if I have time, that years ago, when I used to go and teach meditation in a place south of Perth in Bunbury, the only way I could really do that was arrive early and I'd meditate on the beach every afternoon. And one day I was it's only a quiet place I could find. I just meditated quietly, getting some nice meditation. And then suddenly I could hear this stone whizzing past my ear. Then another stone whizzing past. Somebody was throwing rocks at me. I thought, oh, there's a mind, it's okay. And I heard another couple of rocks go past me. And I heard these boys shouting out, "Hey, Rajnishi, get off our beach." I was being confused with a follower of, I think it's now called Osho, Sri Rajnishi. And so when I realized that they're going to carry on throwing these rocks, soon one is going to hit me, so I better do something. So I stood up and turned around and walked towards them. I never ran away. I walked towards them. And that really stunned most of the boys. They ran away, except for one. And they went up to me and said, and he was talking, he said, "I don't like Rajneesh. You should go back to where you came from," or something like that. And I said, "Look, I'm not a Rajneesh. I'm a Buddhist monk. I'm just quietly meditating." And he said, "Oh, what's Buddhism anyway?" And all the other kids came back as well. And I started talking to them about Buddhism. And it was like fearlessness, because I knew that I had a lot of goodness inside of me and a lot of kindness. And so I use that to protect me. And it always has protected me over these years. So if you know not to be afraid of what's inside, then it's easy not to be afraid of what's outside.
Thank you, Ajahn. Another question here is, I've been trying to learn Dharma for 10 years, but I find it so difficult to apply it in real life. I'm always caught up in resisting change and expecting perfection. Please advise how I can grow to be more stable and more wise.
Okay, that word perfection. This is a story I've used so much, but it's a brilliant story. It's a story of finding the perfect tree in a forest. You go out into a forest in, I don't know, in Singapore or wherever you are, or a park, find a perfect tree which is really straight, all of the branches in the right place, no brown leaves, no leaves being eaten by bugs, and the bark nice and smooth and healthy. If you find a perfect tree in Singapore, it'd probably be in one of those plastic trees in the airport or something. The perfect trees don't exist. And if they did, they would be absolutely boring. Now go and find a beautiful tree. And a beautiful tree is bent all over the place. It's had many injuries from the storms. Its bark is all damaged and gnarled and bumpy and knobbled. And some of the branches have fallen off because of those storms and leave holes in which the birds and other animals make their nests. And sometimes the leaves are just brown and yellow and some green. They're the beautiful ones. They're the ones which I would always go and visit. Ones where I'd want my photograph to be taken. They're all bent, gnarled, and damaged by life. They're the most beautiful ones. And when I tell that to many people who have had a difficult time in their life, I say, if you feel you're damaged by life, been treated unfairly, been bent, gnarled, and wounded, please remember, number one, you belong. You're part of this wonderful forest we call humanity. You belong. Number two, the more damaged you are, the more beautiful you are. I don't mean that just to say something nice. I mean, truthfully, the damaged trees, the ones which are bent, gnarled, all over the place, they are some of the most delightful trees to take photographs of. So put perfection in another way. Call it beauty, delight, reality. And then this Dharma, wow, it just shows you where we have words like perfection, we misunderstand what it really means. When we understand what it truly means, then we're at peace.
Yes, it's much easier to be imperfect.
Yeah. Oh, I'm terribly imperfect. All the jokes which I did. I haven't told a joke yet. There was this man, and he he told his wife he was going to make a bicycle out of spaghetti. His wife said, "That's impossible. You can't make a bicycle out of spaghetti." He said, "Just wait for half an hour." Half an hour later, he rode past her. Yeah, somebody got that very bad joke. Okay, that's not perfect, I must admit. It's the best I've got.
You can say it a few more times and it will be perfected. Okay. Next question is, when you ignore what people says, do you think that's being selfish?
Yes, being stupid. Because they might say, "Look, there's a snake crawling behind you," or "There's a car coming, just get off the road quickly." When somebody says something to you about you, you never take it as accurate, but you take it as a warning. There was, again, this very simple saying which Ajahn Chah gave to me, that if somebody calls you a dog, you look at your bottom to see if you've got a tail. If you haven't got a tail, you're not a dog, so no more problem. If you have got a dog, you say, "Thank you, sir, you were right." In other words, when people say something about you, they may be seeing something you haven't seen yourself. So check it out. But if they say something and it's wrong, you don't need to get upset. Just, "Oh, thank you anyway. But that's not true, I'm not a dog." So it's not just ignoring it, not believing it, but checking it out.
Yes, indeed. And the next one here is, I'm in a dilemma. I do wish to help and do volunteer work, but I'm not comfortable with interacting with other humans, given that there's so much unknown about the virus. So I don't want to spread it to my family members, and I don't know how else to help.
There's many ways to help at a distance. Even just finding people in your street or in your apartment block, who are not getting enough food, and just, knocking on their door and just, standing back a couple of meters, say, "Look, here's some nice food for you I brought. It's really healthy. You can put it in the microwave if you want to make sure that there's no viruses in there." Just be innovative and see other ways which we can help in our world. And even just distribute the hand sanitizers or masks if people haven't got them. Or just cheer them up with doing a little dance on the street or whatever people do to make life a little bit more happy, a little bit more unusual sometimes. What was it that I saw a video a long time ago about, I think, a couple over in Spain who, it was somebody's birthday and they got the whole block of people in the apartments to come out at a certain time. And I think the partner just said, "I think you better go out on the balcony right now." And about 100, 200 people sang happy birthday to him. Little things like that, bonding, doing innovative things, is to cheer people up. You can't actually go to a birthday party, but voice and sound travels much further than the 2 meters of restrictions and social distancing. Social distancing, it should really be called like body distancing or physical distancing. But kindness just knows no distance. And that kindness does not carry diseases. That kindness heals diseases. And it makes a person giving it feel so much better as well. So find innovative ways of helping and serving.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. In Singapore, there are more people getting infected by mosquitoes and coming down with dengue than COVID-19.
Please teach those mosquitoes to social distance. Tell them they're only allowed to become within 2 meters of human beings.
Thank you. Over to you, Rahanta. Do you have any more questions on you?
There are a whole bunch. Let me ask something that is fairly relevant. Give me 1 minute. Sorry. Compared to other times, the last 2 months, people had to follow the same routine and did not have even the opportunity to go for a short walk. most of the time was spent within family members. Many describe this as boring. Why being with those whom we love can be boring, and how can we make our relationships more lively?
Because you always do things the same way, do things differently. You know, just obviously playing games, whether it's Monopoly or card games. A lot of times people expect to be entertained instead of actually putting entertainment into your life. They expect to be delighted by their family members without giving delight to them. So you have your family members, and look, even if you're by yourself, people say that's the hardest, but I've been telling a lot of people, I did 6 months of solitude. You know, you might, let's say, call it 6 months of lockdown many years ago. I never saw another human being for 6 months. I never talked for 6 months. I saw the animals. They were wonderful to live with, the animals, the snakes, and the eagles, and obviously the kangaroos. Really, really got to feel just how the animals in a West Australian forest live and communicate with us. But anyway, still had a lot of happiness there. So I think if you expect and want so much, you can't find the normal forms of happiness. I've already mentioned that time, 44 years ago when I first became a monk, seeing villagers, the whole family, every evening they were spent together. And they would talk and they would joke, and that they'd learn how to talk and listen to one another. And sometimes in a family, we've been too busy to be able to do that. And to learn to do that all over again, just to spend time with one another, to cook your favorite meals together instead of going to a restaurant to eat, even to make a mess of some of those meals. I don't know, I've got a really weird memory, but every year in the UK, we'd have one day, I think it was Shrove Tuesday, it's part of the Christian calendar, but people would make pancakes. And it was the tradition that your father would put the pancake in the frying pan and one side would be grilled and he'd toss it, to do the other side. And so many of those pancakes ended up on the floor. He was terrible at tossing the pancakes, but nevertheless, every time one fell on the floor, we all laughed as kids, and we thought that was just so wonderful to do something which was basically a little bit stupid, but which brought the family together. So don't just turn on the TV, just make some pancakes and toss them, or do something which is out of the ordinary and make your time with your family fun. So it takes a bit of effort, but it can be done. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Angie?
Okay, there is a question here. Why does bad luck happen to us in life? And how do we change our lives for the better?
It's not bad luck happens to you. It's something happens and you just misunderstand it. You call it bad luck. I think I've told Angie this so many times that when I was 22 or something, 22. Oh no, younger than that. Anyway, once I fell in love. I fell in love with this beautiful girl. And about 6 months we were so happy together. And then I had the bad luck that she met somebody else and she dumped me for him. At the time I thought it was bad luck. And now I say, thank you so much for dumping me. If you hadn't have dumped me, I could never become a monk. So sometimes what is bad luck we think is just a name. And afterwards we see it was one of the most fortunate things which ever happened to us.
It's so don't call our good luck.
Whatever, I don't know. But anyway, they never call it bad luck. Just call it interesting, unexpected, maybe unpleasant. But bad luck, sometimes it's good luck. Wait and see.
Indeed. Now, there is so much unrest in the US. What can we do to help from afar? Because there's so much anger and hate that's spreading like wildfire, and I'm concerned about the hate spreading to other countries. Basically, I think this person is referring to racism.
Well, one thing was one practical thing which I thought had been sort of solved in the United States. Is just when you have schools, school boards, to make sure you have people from all religions, all races, all types of people, even people who are disabled, all go into the same class. Because kids, they have this wonderful wisdom that they don't see color, they see a good friend, and they just hang out with their friend. And if you make those good friends when you're very, very young, that sometimes that what we call color blindness, it just maintains into your old age. When we segregate kids, they segregate kids because of their race or their religion or because of their abilities. That segregation sometimes creates the little villages, and our village fights your village. So there is a way of getting our children to live together and to grow together until our children just don't see, who is Chinese, who is African American, who is, I often say that I'm Asian. I'm Asian, Angie? I'm Caucasian. In other words, find ways of uniting people. But at the moment, it's even saying things like Black Lives Matter. This is all lives matter. So even you can understand just the harm and the hurt which the African American community in the United States have received over those years. But just even segregating Black Lives Matter is wonderful. I did see one video on the news site. There was quite a few sheriffs in the riot gear were facing off against the protesters, and the sheriff took off his helmet and put away his baton and said, "Can I please walk with you?" And those beautiful moments where the white sheriff and mostly black protesters walked together. They had a problem. There were some officers who were still, very racist, but not all police officers. There were some black Africans who were very violent, very angry, but not all black Africans or black Americans. And so it's actually those ones, who haven't got those problems should make the effort to join one another and to show the violence, even in the United States. There's more people in the United States who are peaceful than who are violent. But it's those with the biggest mouths and the loudest mouths make most noise. Violence is heard. Peace goes undisturbed and people forget it's there. And I may be just out of touch, but I'm sure there's many more peaceful people in the United States than there are violent people. But the peaceful people never get on the news.
Thank you, Ajahn. So some people are struggling with COVID-19 and the uncertainties of life, but what about life trauma? Like abuse being young or something bad.
Abuse trauma, obviously, that sort of stuff should never occur anyway, but if it has occurred, what are you going to do about it? And of course, there are ways of healing. And one of those ways of healing, again, it's one of my favorite stories, because when I found this out, wow, the fact that this worked was, I never thought that a story like opening the door of your heart could actually go so far. But when I went to this organization and they showed me what they were doing, it was the Association of Survivors of Torture and Trauma. People who come to Australia as refugees, and what they'd gone through was just horrific. I mean, it was just gross in the extreme. These underground dungeons or military camps somewhere, boys who were raped and tortured girls the same multiple times. And You'd think they would have died, but somehow or other they either escaped or were liberated and found their way to Australia. Physically they were safe, but emotionally they were still back in those torture camps. And how did they cope with that trauma, which was really gross? And somebody suggested, they said they did this open the door of their heart technique when they felt safe and confident in their own time, never using force or pressure. They would sit down and imagine a little heart in their chest, like a what's it called, like the Valentine's Day heart. Something simple to imagine. And then they imagine double door in the middle. And they'd open that door in the middle of their heart. And inside their heart, they could see themselves, the part of their life they liked and could live with. But they could also see outside in the cold, expelled, not welcome, were those little girls and boys who were so badly beaten and raped and abused. They could see those little parts of them outside. And the next part of the exercise was to lower a ladder down from their heart down to the cold. People who were stigmatized, excluded, not welcome, which was part of them. And invite all those little girls, their story of being beaten and raped and abused and hurt. Allow all of them to come up one by one when they're ready. And having the courage, and it means immense courage, to welcome each one of their history back into their heart. And hugging, you're part of me. You're my history, you're who I am. They welcome that. And this is amazing catharsis happens. It's pushing it away, trying to feel it never happened, trying to exclude, trying to forget. That is one of the biggest causes of the trauma. But to welcome it in your own time with peace, it means they never forget what happened. They're peaceful. And again, seeing some of the women who've done this, they're just so impressive to be done. Oh, sorry, I get very impressed with this.
Thank you, Ajahn. Instead of having question fatigue, could I invite you to lead a 10-minute meditation, and then we can invite
you. We still have another 40 minutes, right?
Yes, that's
I can do more. Yeah.
Want to just kind of take a break here and do a 10-minute meditation because yeah,
sure. If Ajahn needs a break, by all means.
Okay. Do a 10-minute meditation, and people can meditate in the toilet if they need to go to the toilet. So let go. Okay. So do you want to guide the meditation, or just to do it?
Please provide a guided meditation as requested by some people.
Very good. Okay. So please, sitting down or lying down, wherever you are, it's not important. But to check your posture with your eyes closed. How do you feel? And develop this wonderful attitude of making peace, being kind, and being gentle to your own body. So don't fight feelings in the body, just make peace with them. Sometimes it's like having a ceasefire in a war. We're not trying to control or blame, we're making peace. And part of making peace with our body is being so kind to it. Sometimes the injuries or the hurt in our bodies because we've forgotten it, we haven't cared for it. So sometimes I say to parts of my body, I apologize for not looking after you. Care for your body. I look at my body like a separate being to my mind. So my mind sometimes says, thank you, body, for looking after me. Thank you for allowing me to speak and to serve. My brain for allowing me to remember and to see things. And my digestive system for being able to digest and give me energy. So I have gratitude for my body. And I'm gentle with it. I don't put it in meditation positions which are hurtful, thinking that I can overpower the pain with just endurance. I'm gentle with my body. If I need to move it, I will. If I say that to my body, it doesn't want to move. It wants to relax and be peaceful. So I'm grateful. Body is not perfect, but it's more than good enough. And when my body feels like it's relaxing and finding some peace, only when my body is pretty peaceful do I turn to my mind. Because I know if I don't spend enough time in my body, the body will argue with me and interrupt me, saying I need more attention. So I wait till I feel this delightful peace in my body, delightful relaxation. When my body feels delightfully relaxed, that's a signal to go to my mind. And look at my peaceometer. How peaceful am I? I suppose I shouldn't really be that peaceful. I've been working, answering questions, sitting here. I feel very peaceful. When you've been working by giving, you find a lot of energy and peace. I can see in my mind it's energized and peaceful. And now make it even more peaceful. In this moment, all the past, all those past questions, all the future, I don't even concern about now. This moment is all I have. I simplify it to the max. Just being in this moment, the mind becomes so much more peaceful. It's like a lot of work has been let go of. The work of trying to fix up mistakes of the past. The work of worrying about the future. Come to this moment now. And I learn how to listen rather than to speak. Yeah, my mouth is speaking, but I'm not thinking. It's a weird experience. I've noticed this. Just like I let the words come out, but I never plan what I'm going to say. My mind is silent. The silence is profound. It's delightful. So beautiful. You don't want to disturb it. That's how you keep silent, by noticing its beauty and delight. And then it's just my habit. I start being aware of my breathing. There's so much gratitude to my breath. Maybe not spending any attention to my breathing. I'm sleeping, I'm meditating, I'm eating or doing other stuff. My breath always does its job. Always brings oxygen into my body and takes the used matter out. And I read that people with COVID have such difficult times breathing. So I'm so grateful, breath, that you're doing a wonderful job right now. I feel so lucky. And that makes watching the breath so easy. And watching it with care, with gratitude. And it becomes delightful. This is watching the breath with piti sukha, with delight, joy. That's all I'm observing. That's all I know. Delightful breath coming in right now. A very easy, comfortable breath going out. I don't force anything. I don't aim for anything. Just relaxing in this moment. Not wanting anything in the whole world. Just quite content, being delighted by this momentary breath. Feels so peaceful, so joyful. So now, to open your eyes and come out of the meditation.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm.
Oh, thank you. Good job I came out then, and if a few moments longer, and you'd have lost me.
Yes, especially when you don't have any feedback from the audience and you're just speaking to a screen. It can be hard going.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how can one deal with the anxiety that comes with this unprecedented time? As I'm expecting to deliver a baby in a few months' time, will I contract the virus if I go out and then end up infecting my family?
No, very unlikely. So, in other words, if you go out, you wear your mask, keep social distancing, you'll be quite safe. I mean, people know now with COVID that you know exactly how it works. You have to be pretty close for a longer time. You know, just very unlikely to just get 1 or 2 minutes next to somebody. And you're going to have your baby there. And if you're anxious, that's what you're really infecting your baby with anxiety. And COVID will pass, but anxiety can last a long time in a person. And of course, your baby feels what mother feels. So see if you can give this positive energy to your baby inside. I don't know how many months you've been pregnant now, how many months do you give birth, but the anxiety is something which I think you should be more worried about than the COVID, without being anxious about the anxiety. So go out and have some joy, have some happiness, and be careful, and I think you'll be fine.
Thank you, Ajahn. Rohantha, would you like to ask some of your questions?
Yes, please. I'll be changing gears slightly and going to a bit more to the other aspects of Buddhism. Ajahn.
Okay.
One question is, during the time of the Buddha, lay people attained stream entry or Sotapanna while listening to the Dhamma. Is this a possibility even today? If yes, what are the prerequisites she should have to have such an attainment?
This is a common question, and you see that some of the people who listened to the Dhamma from the Buddha and were declared to be stream enterers were the people who tried to assassinate him. So that was really weird when I first heard that. And I think the solution, what I feel is accurate, is remember there's two paths to being a stream winner. There's getting on the path and getting the attainment. And what the Buddha is saying, people have enormous faith in the Buddha's teachings. They are counted as being a sadhanusari, in other words, having faith, a follower. And because they have enough faith, really confident, and they're going to follow the Eightfold Path, it doesn't mean that by the end of their life they'll be a stream winner. So because the stream winning is certain, they even call a stream winner now. In the same way, it's the only simile which I've found. It's not a good simile to say, if you've done some very, very bad thing to some gang members, they say you're a dead man walking. You're not a dead man walking, I'm still alive, but your death is certain, they say. So you're just tantamount to being dead. So even in the English language, when something is certain, sometimes the language says it's like it's already happened. And I think it's the same with the Pali, that when a person listened to the Dhamma and they really had faith and some understanding and they were going to follow those teachings, then they were tantamount to being a stream winner. But of course, it's not just listening to these sermons, you follow them. With enough confidence. Remember, this was from a Buddha, a very powerful being, who would instill so much incredible confidence in people. I would say a few words, and always remember those words said to Bahiya, in the scene, let it just be the scene, in the herd, just the herd, in the cognized, smelt and tasted, just that, in the touch, just the touched, in the known, just the known. And Bahiya just listened to those teachings. He wasn't a stream winner, he became fully enlightened. And I've read that sutta many times. I've taught that sutta many times. And I've taught it in public many times. And no one yet has become fully enlightened when we said that sutta. Why? It's because where it comes from and the power of those people listening. So it's not just listening to the suttas, it's listening and understanding them deeply.
Thank you, Ajahn. Another question is, if the second factor of the if the second factor to the sixth factor of the Eightfold Path is practiced with sati, then would the eighth factor unfold as a natural consequence?
You need the first factor as well, the right view. So the Eightfold Path, you can't sort of shorten it or take one off here, take one off there. You need the whole 8 factors. Yeah, you may focus on one factor of the Eightfold Path first, but the other ones will have to come behind because they support one another. And as far as the eighth factor is concerned, which is the jhanas, they all come from letting go of the sense of self, the sense of me. And that's part of the right view. So each one of the factors of the Eightfold Path has to be focused on, has to be practiced. I think you all know that my favorite, well, not my favorite one which I spend a lot of time talking about is the second factor of the Eightfold Path. And I've already mentioned it already. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. The right motivation, where you're coming from. The first translation, making peace, is not the most accurate, but people understand it. It's really like renouncing. Meditating not to attain, but to renounce. Renounce the sense of self and renounce the sense of self-attaining things and owning things and possessing things. Renunciation. Nekama. And the kindness and the gentleness. One of the reasons why people try to become a stream winner, try to become enlightened by forcing and practicing so hard, sometimes you're never going to get anywhere. You know, you're missing the point. It's being kind and being gentle and renouncing this ego, this sense of self which always wants to do things and attain things. It's not like going to university. This is something totally different. It's peaceful practice. So you need a whole eightfold path to attain, but a lot of these things, they do happen naturally. It's just part of the path. When you let go, then the jhanas happened. Simple as that.
So thank you, Ajahn. So we are fairly sure, for example, that the yogis in India, the Hindu yogis, for example, they do attain jhanas. As much as you have said, there are possible instances where even the Christian, some of the Christian monastics may have achieved jhanas because they describe it in such a way. So what is missing from that versus, so you get the jhana, but what's missing there? Why don't they progress along the kind of the eightfold path? Is it because the other factors are missing?
Yeah, especially right view is missing.
Okay. Thank you, Ajahn. So the next question is from Venerable Damita. Dear Ajahn, can you kindly lay out for us the key important aspects of the right view, the big picture, which comes into play in day-to-day practice?
It's just non-self. And sometimes you focus on non-self. It doesn't belong to me. This is not me, not mine, not a self. You look upon that and just keep contemplating. There's so much of us we want to try and protect. Everything else is non-self, but this part of me, no, this is real me. This is the original mind, the ultimate sense of who I am and stuff like that. It's all just preserving a self somewhere. It's much more fun not to have a self. So in other words, the self does things. That's its job, that's its function. And so when you do things, you can never be still and peaceful. When that self starts to vanish little by little, you do less, you're more still, peaceful, you let go more and more and more. And it's these beautiful states of mind, the bliss states of jhana, they come quite easy when there's no self doing stuff, interfering. It just starts to give you the insights that one of the biggest problems is this self and its will. And it's just wanting to be conscious, wanting to know. So little by little, the sense of self disappears. Of course, that's, sometimes some practitioners, they focus on self, sometimes they focus on anicca, the cause and effect nature of life. Sometimes they focus on suffering and happiness. But I always think that the anatta non-self is the one part of Buddhism which stands out, makes it different from all other practices.
Thank you, Ajahn. Angie?
Thank you. Sometimes people don't know how to meditate and the purpose of meditation, and how does it lead to nibbana?
That's a big question. But first of all, how to meditate is very wonderful these days. You can get guided meditations online from really, obviously, good practitioners. Make sure they don't charge money. If they charge money, there's something terribly wrong with that. They're doing it for another purpose, unless it's just to cover cost or something. But the real ones which have experience are doing it out of joy of giving. You may be able to give a donation to them later on, but just however much you want to give, you don't give, that's all the same. So those are the very best. And so the guided meditations, and the guided meditations which you like, which make you peaceful, not which force you, because there's far too much force in meditations these days, and people sometimes are very fragile, and they can break so easily with force, with lots of kindness and lots of gentleness, just like the Buddha said. So you find a meditation which works for you, and it makes you peaceful, and that by itself gives you a great purpose, just to find some more peace in life. When you find peace in your mind, your body does become healthy, or at least healthier, and it's much easier to deal with other people. You can just watch how your mind works and how some stupid things which it does. And once you see it's a stupid thing, you can laugh at it, it doesn't happen again. Well, it happens much less. And you realize that little by little, you're getting into some very peaceful states of mind. And eventually, they either get close to or experience these deep jhanas. And this is a totally different experience for you. And what you're experiencing is things which you always thought were permanent, always going to be there, just disappeared. And things like your will or your body and some of your consciousness, it's not really who you are. It's a great experiment. And I look at that like a physicist, which I was trained as. You're really getting some new data. And also, should not be underestimated, that when you meditate, your mind becomes empowered. It sees things more clearly. In the sutras, it's called the 5 hindrances, which block wisdom, which weakens your stillness, gets suppressed, which gives us a wonderful opportunity to see clearly. That's what happens when you meditate. You get far more clarity of mind, far more energy of mind. You can see more, feel more, enjoy more. It's like you're waking up. And little by little, as you wake up more and more, as your mind becomes energized more and more, you soon become fully awakened. And that's in part of the word is Bujati, the Buddha. You know just how the Buddha felt. Because you've woken up. So it has many different angles, but meditation is just so brilliant.
Thank you, Ajahn. How do you find the purpose of life and become a monk?
Oh, that's an amazing purpose of life. Look, when I first, this is personal, when I first became a monk, I thought a great opportunity because I finished a relationship, I had a good job, I was healthy, only 23 years of age. I thought I'd go over to Thailand because they allowed temporary ordinations over there. And I said maybe 2 or 3 years, 3 years at the most, become a monk, become fully enlightened, and then go back and carry on the rest of my life. I had no clue what enlightenment was. That's what I thought. And anyway, just after a short time, you realize, no, this was something totally different. It's a very peaceful and beautiful, simple lifestyle. And lots of kindness, lots of wisdom, but just even the lifestyle of living an honest, moral, virtuous life and having few things and being so happy. And then, of course, that enhances the meditation. And the purpose of life, my personal happiness and the ability to give happiness to others. What more of a meaning of life can you have than that? And just so often, people sometimes criticize me, you're just praising yourself, Ajahn Brahm, but so often you get these emails and letters from people who come up and say, look, you really saved my life. I wouldn't be here if you hadn't given that talk. And that gives a huge meaning. What was it last October? I was in Paddington Station Concourse and just going from the underground to catch a train to Oxford to give a talk. And this woman came running towards me from nowhere and said, she said, are you the YouTube monk? and before I could answer, she looked at me and said, yes, you are, Ajahn Brahm. She said, you saved my life. I've gone through a terrible separation with my partner. and I was suicidal, and my friends tried to help, but they couldn't. I went to see the psychologist, psychiatrist, my doctor, no one helped. But I was at home just really feeling depressed, suicidal. I just went on YouTube and found your talks, and that was it. And I've given many of your talks to so many other of my friends who feel a bit depressed. You saved my life, Ajahn Brahm. And I'd never seen her before. She was African English, and it was just so inspiring. You know, that you'd actually done something. If just one person says that to you, that already fulfills the meaning of your life. What a great happiness that gives you when you feel that you've given a talk. That's why I do these talks to the Ajahn Brahm Society. If one person just gets a little bit deeper in their meditation, a little bit less sick, a little bit less negative, what a great gift that is. So I just really get blissed out when I hear things like that.
Ajahn, sometimes people meditate to find peace, but they don't find peace when they're meditating because they get more distressed.
They get more what?
Troubled and distressed because all the thoughts in the mind.
Yeah, they're looking for things. There's an old Zen saying that this man, he wanted to cook his rice. And he had the rice in the pot, he had the water, he had the wood, but he couldn't find anything to light the flame with. So he looked all around the house for the box of matches with a lit candle. If he only knew what a flame was, he could have cooked his rice much earlier. So we're looking for peace. You know, when we already have peace, we should stop looking, stop searching, and just be in this moment. Stop doing stuff and just relax to the max. People are always attainers, always trying to get something. And that's always too much wanting. Well, they're never satisfied. I only got first jhana today, I want second jhana. That's ridiculous. So instead of actually wanting stuff and trying to attain, learn how to be content and easily satisfied. Learn from this moment. Care for it. Never try and cure it.
Thank you.
Make peace. Yeah, carry on.
Well, we're 8 minutes before 9 o'clock, and I know this has been a long 2 hours for you.
No, it hasn't.
Oh, okay. It's been a short 2 hours for you.
It's been just one moment.
So could you end this session before doing a blessing for everyone to answer some of the questions which I'm combining here with regards to COVID-19?
Yeah.
Because people are worried about their jobs. People are worried that they might get COVID-19, and people are worried that, well, the government's not doing too much or not doing enough. So could you please address this?
Worry is a health hazard. So if I could give you a mask or a sanitizer for your mind to get rid of the worry, that would be wonderful. And not so many people get sick. So first of all, don't worry about things. Now, you haven't got COVID now, great. So enjoy this moment. And you haven't lost your job today, great, enjoy. And when you have joy and energy, you work much harder, more efficiently. Imagine a person going to work and they're worried about losing their job. They're not focusing on the work, which they're supposed to do. They're worried about getting COVID and they're not looking at crossing the road to get hit by a car because they're worried about getting COVID when they get hit by a car. So there's so many stupid things when we worry about something which we can't really help. So if you are going to worry about things which are right in front of you right now, where you can make a difference. Otherwise, the way we use our brain is just totally crazy. Worrying about things we can't do anything about. What a waste of time.
Thank you very much, Ajahn. Rohanta, do you have any last question to pose to Ajahn before we request Ajahn Brahm for a blessing before
Yes.
he go?
Yeah, thank you. There are so many questions. I'm just trying to get a quick one so that Ajahn can hopefully not be too stressed out or too much worked out. Dear Bhante, in my meditation, so this is a meditation one, so it's very important. Bhante, in my meditation practice and trying hard to improve my practice, my main problem / hindrance is one is sloth and torpor, or on the other side is restlessness and worry. What advice can you give to overcome this?
Stop trying so hard. Instead, if you have sloth and torpor, make peace with your sloth and torpor. It's a natural phenomena. Be kind to it. Embrace it. Because if you make peace with it, you're not wasting energy fighting the sloth and torpor. And then the energy comes back. And the energy doesn't come back into restlessness. It comes back into this wonderful space between restlessness and sloth and torpor. Energy which is focused. So it's a common problem. People will try way too hard, trying to achieve something, trying to get somewhere. So instead, present moment awareness. In the real present moment, there is no future, there is no past. What on earth are you trying to get? So instead, be here, fully. Be with this moment. Be kind. The kind gives you the energy, the joy. Be so gentle. And let go of trying to achieve things. And then you find the mind becomes peaceful all by itself. The old hand simile of Ajahn, I'm not waving goodbye. Ajahn Chah said, this represents a leaf on a tree. It only waves because of the wind. When the wind stops, it slows down and gets eventually very peaceful. That's your mind, said Ajahn Chah. If you want to try and achieve something, your mind will never be still. If you stop wanting, all types of wanting, even wanting good things, all wanting stops and your mind becomes perfectly still, all by itself.
Thank you very much, Ajahn. Really appreciate your help, your advice, your engagement in holding this session today. We do sincerely hope that you will also take time off in another few weeks, hopefully to continue the whole bunch of more questions. I mean, I actually copied some down, hundreds of them. So not to be stressing out too much on your other activities, but thank you very much. Angie, over to you.
Thank you, Rohanta, and thank you to Ajahn Brahm Society in Sri Lanka for initiating this webinar that we have the honor of collaborating with you. And now I'd like to thank Ajahn Brahm again from everyone around the world, because we have also people who've signed in from Canada, France, India, and many other countries. And before we end, Ajahn Brahm, could you do a blessing, a chanting for everyone in the world to be accepting of whatever rises in the world, because we have no control.
Exactly. So anyway, this is a nice wish for your peace and happiness. So, Sabbaroga vinimuto sabba santapa Vajito sabba viramati kando niputo chato wangpawa sabitio vivajantu sabbarogo vinasatu mate pavanvantarayo Sukhi Dikayu Gopawa Apiwadadhasilita Sanichang Wuta Pachalino Chataro Dhamma Vatanti Ayuano Sukhang Bala.
Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. Do you have water with you? It sounds like you need a drink.
Yeah, I have tea. It's even better.
Okay.
Cheers from Australia.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Ajahn Brahm. And do you think we could have another one next week or week after?
Oh, probably be 2 weeks. A week
Wonderful.
afterwards.
Wonderful.
Right.
Thank
2
you,
weeks
Bhante.
from now is excellent. So
What about you say?
everyone who is online, there'll be another talk for Ajahn Brahm in 2 weeks' time, and we will be letting you know the topic. So stay tuned, and you'll be hearing from us again very soon. Thank you again, Ajahn.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.